This episode is brought to you by Buzzshot, Cogs by Clockwork Dog, PG's Playhouse, and Patreon supporters like you.
Hey, escape room owners. Are you still trying to solve the marketing puzzle? Buzzshot to the rescue. Buzzshot is the secret weapon powering business growth and improving the customer experience. This is software with a ton of pre- and post-game features, including waiver management, creating incredible branded team photos, and streamlined review management for Yelp, TripAdvisor, Google reviews, Facebook reviews, wherever people review. And they also offer integrations with Cogs.
Buzzshot is a company that is committed to two things: reliability and constantly expanding their offerings for their customers. One example of this is their event manager. This is a new feature, and the event manager is designed to help support the shift to larger group games and the need to manage corporate bookings. These are really important things for escape room businesses to make the most of their weekday bookings. And also, it's something that allows escape room companies to host really large groups. This is the kind of thing that Buzzshot empowers escape room creators to do when they roll out new features. Layer on top of that those new features are backed by the reliability of a company that has been around for years and is constantly working to make sure that their platform does exactly what you want when you need it to do it.
Nick Moran, creator of Phantom Peak, uses Buzzshot, and he says that we needed to work with the most reliable and robust platform available.
And Nick is always exacting in his demands of his products and services. Streamline your marketing and grow your escape room business. Repod listeners get an extended free trial and 20% off your first 3 months with no setup fees or hidden charges. Visit buzzshot.com/repod, that's REPOD, to learn more. Link and details in the show notes. Welcome to the Reality Escape Pod, your lifeline when you need a getaway from the real world. I'm David Spira, alongside my co-host, PG Law. Together, we're exploring immersive gaming from all angles, and we'll be joined by guests who really know their stuff. Today's guest is Jim Oliva of WWSP 90 FM in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. For 54 insane hours every April, Jim assumes the identity of the Oz and leads a group of University of Wisconsin students in running the world's largest trivia contest. This annual event began in 1969, and Jim has been at the helm since 1979. Players can participate in the madness online or in person every single April. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you for having me on, David and PG.
We're thrilled to have you.
Well, thank you. It's fun to be here. I've never done anything like this particularly before, and so it's a new experience, which I always like something new.
You ended up on our radar because one of the people on the Room Escape Artist team is Heather Burns. And Heather has been participating in the world's largest trivia contest since 1993 with her team Help Wanted.
Okay.
And for many, many years, really all the time I had known Heather, whenever we talked about other hobbies and interests, she would always say, I like trivia. And in my mind, I always pictured pub trivia, like she had a group of people that she was going to a bar with every Tuesday night and doing trivia. And it took years for me to go and say, what does that mean to you? And once I did, we ended up having a 2-hour conversation where she explained the world's largest trivia contest to me and blew my damn mind. And ever since then, I have wanted to have you on.
I'm very honored. It's so funny because so many people say, how did you get involved? And why did you do this? And blah, 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 blah. And thank you so much. And you put in so much effort. And I said, I just do it because I have fun.
I get that.
That's why we do this.
Before we dig into this more broadly, I want to give our audience a little bit more context. Think of the world's largest trivia contest not as like pub trivia. Think of it as a wild Midwestern version of the MIT Mystery Hunt for a slightly different crowd where people drink quite a bit more.
There is one team that has a motto: the more you drink, the more you know.
That's the good words to live by.
Yep.
So normally, a lot of times, I'll go into these recordings. Either I know the person and their work very well, or I go in totally blind, and that's great because I'm like the audience stand-in. But in this case in particular, David was like, PG, I normally never give you homework, but you have to watch this video. And he showed me this crazy documentary about all of the links the trivia teams are going to. And so I needed the video to kind of understand how this contest even works or what it is. But for our listeners, let's just start with the basics. Because as David mentioned, this is not your regular pub trivia night. So can you tell us, what is the world's largest trivia contest? How does it work?
It starts at 6 o'clock Friday night on a Friday in April. And there are 8 questions asked each hour. There are 2 songs that are played for the question, and then the question is over. During that time period, teams can call into the station with their correct answer. The point values are then divided by the number of teams that get it right. The maximum number of points you can get per question are 500. The least amount of points you can get are 5. And they're all multiples of the number 5. And the contest ends at midnight Sunday. Now, if you add that up mathematically, that comes out to 54 hours. And people say, when do you sleep? And I go like, when you're dead.
Sleep is for the weak. Sleep is for the losers.
That's right. Oh, you need your 8 hours of sleep? Good luck. You'll be in last place. Anyway, so the contest is just questions about media. So books, magazines, television, radio, commercials, music, anything that has to do with media. There are also a couple of specialty questions, one of them being the music snippets, where we will play snippets of songs and teams have to identify them. And we do that 3 times during the contest. So there's 8 snippets that are played, which represent 8 different songs. And so people say, oh, well, I could look it up on Spotify. Really? So I can tell you that 8 music snippets, 8 different songs, put them together, 13 seconds. The entirety of all 8 songs is 13 seconds. With Shazam and things like that, you need about 3 to 5 seconds of the song in order to find it. So that kind of gets eliminated during the contest. Another thing that we do is we have 2 running questions, and the running questions are held at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning, 7 a.m. on Sunday morning. We meet in a location, and people have to run up and down the street and collect maybe a dozen or so answers of questions that we have that may be part of a building or in a storefront or something like that.
So when you said a running question, you meant like literally, physically running.
Absolutely, because one of the things, the only rule of a running question is you cannot have wheels. So you can't even roller skate.
None of those scooters.
No, you got to be on your feet and motivating.
So it's a little bit like a scavenger hunt almost. You got to go to a certain building and maybe look at a plaque and like, what's the 5th word on the 3rd line, something like that?
Right. And then the last extra question is called a trivia stone. And we basically break all of the teams into 2 groups, the A group and the B group, and then we give A clues and B clues. What they do is they get in their cars and they drive around the community looking for things that we tell them, like look for a woodpecker in a tree. The woodpecker is not a real woodpecker. It's a wooden object or some kind of character that people have in their lawn or on their lawn or up in a tree.
Like a lawn ornament.
An ornament, or go past the 3rd stop sign or something like that. There's 11 clues given, and during that time period, they have to stop at 3 different times to pick up a trivia stone stamp. And the stamp is put into the rule book on their ID number sticker. So each team, when they register, they get a rule book, and there's an ID sticker on there, and the stamp is going to be on that. And there's 3 different stamps, and points are awarded depending on the number of stamps that you have.
So it's a little bit like geocaching or something, where you have to go to a specific location and find the stamp and stamp your book.
Right.
Now, in order to find those locations, is that just given, or is there like kind of a puzzle or a question to figure out where they're supposed to go?
Okay, so we'll say start up. Group A, clue number 1, starts in front of 90 FM studios. Facing north, drive 1 block, turn left. Or drive past the big R, the big letter R, and turn left. Then drive past the fake trees and turn right. So let's say we read a clue at 3 a.m. and we say you have 45 minutes to get to this location and pick up your trivia stone stamp. So we'll give them clue number 1 at 7:30, clue number 2 at 11:30, and clue number 3 at 3:15. And they have until 4 o'clock to get that stamp picked up. So if you wait until we read clue number 3 to go out and do no 1 and 2, you're going to be in a big pile of hurt because you're not going to do it. And then the night clues that we give are much easier than the daytime clues. The daytime clues are mean and ugly. They really are. They're cruel and vicious. But the nighttime clues are a piece of cake.
So the questions are all continuing just straight through the night then?
Yeah.
And are you also awake this whole time, or you have other people doing the clues for you?
I don't read them all. I do 1 shift during the contest.
You get to kick back and relax, all the hard work.
Oh, yeah. Then I take the complaint line the rest of the contest.
I just had a few more questions about logistics.
Sure.
How many teams participate in this? Like how many people and how many teams?
Teams can be any size. For several years, we had a team that was made up of 1 person, and the team was the unhappy hooker.
These are like puzzle hunt team names.
Yes, but on the other hand, we've had teams of 400.
Oh, wow.
Where an entire dormitory will play. And they're all allowed. There's no limitation. Typically, a team is going to be between 35 and 60 players.
35 and 60. Yeah, this is like MIT Puzzle Hunt scope. And how many teams would you say participate?
Between 350 and 450.
So we have 8 questions per hour for 54 hours, 428 questions, well over 300 teams, and more than like 12,000 people actively participating annually.
Pretty much.
How are these people submitting their answers to these questions?
Phone calls.
Phone calls.
So we have 18 phone lines into the station. We have 6 different numbers that we give out, 6 banks of 3. So when you call in, it could go to one of 3 phones.
I understand why trivia would have started with phone banks. Why preserve phone banks?
What else would you do?
Maybe the internet?
Boring.
I knew that was the answer, but I felt like I had to ask for the many people who are listening and wondering.
The best way to describe what happens for 54 hours, chaos. Nothing but pure, unadulterated chaos. And so part of that chaos is teams calling in.
You got to make them fight for it.
Yes. And so one of the things that will happen is people will call up the complaint line and they'll say, well, I couldn't get in on the last question. I go like, well, then you didn't get any points, did you?
Youth these days will never know the pain of calling in, having to wait like 20 minutes on the phone just so you could request your favorite song.
I know, right. The one part of telephones that I miss the most is having a desk phone. And when you're really pissed at somebody, you just slam that sucker down. It's just so...
Slamming your $1,200 smartphone down on the table and not having it actually hang up doesn't have the same effect.
Exactly.
Angrily pressing a screen.
I want to take and hit it so hard that my hand hurts. It's cathartic. It really is.
It sounds to me like chaos is intentional and part of the design, not just a byproduct of the incredible number of people that you have.
Yeah, I would say so. And, the other part of the phone bank is teams call up, they have to give their ID number, and that's repeated back to them. Then they give their answer, they're thanked for their answer, and they hang up. And that's it. The cool part of it is that early on in the contest, the people on a team will come together and they'll say, okay, whenever we don't know an answer, this is what we're going to call in. And then they'll decide on that, like usually within the first 3 hours of the contest. And then for the rest of the contest, they'll call in this one absolutely ridiculous answer. And as they start getting the same phone operator over and over again, they're giving this wrong answer to. And finally, the phone operators are just busting out laughing at these people when they call in. It's just...
Wait, why do they do that? Are they just kind of serving you back a little bit of the chaos that you foisted onto them?
I don't know, but...
I have an answer from speaking to some folks who participate.
They want to jam the phone lines.
That is it. Strategically,
Yep.
only a certain number of teams will be able to complete a call over the course of that song, especially at the end of the song. So if you are jamming up the phone lines, it means you are functionally blocking someone else from potentially submitting a correct answer.
This is some 4D chess.
And if I don't know the answer, I'll be darned if I'm going to let you get your answer in.
So how does scoring work?
Okay, what we do is we take 2,000 points and divide that by the number of teams that got it plus 3. So if one team got it right, add 3, that's 4. 4 into 2,000 is 500.
So if you get an answer right that no other team got right, the points are raining on you.
500, yep.
And if you get an answer right that every other team is getting, you're not getting much at all.
But for years, people would say, what's 5 points? What's 5 points? One year, a team ended up in 11th place, and we give trophies to the top 10 teams at the end of the contest. Team ended up in 11th place by 5 points. So suddenly, what's 5 points is a big question, not a little question.
Now, what happens if a team thinks that the official answer is incorrect?
They have to call and talk to the complaint line.
Which is you.
Yeah.
And how does that usually go for them?
I'm very kind and considerate. I will listen to their complaint, and if they're really vehement about it, I'll say, bring in 2 written sources that I can see. Or in the case of a movie, if they have a copy of the movie, they can bring it in, and believe me, they do. And since the internet has come along, one of the rules is you have to bring in 2 sources, and the internet cannot be any of them.
Oh, wow. Okay, so high burden of proof here.
Yes, because the biggest source of misinformation in the world is located on the internet.
I have also heard stories of trivia teams changing Wikipedia, going in and editing Wikipedia to obscure correct answers during trivia and try and prevent other teams from finding the information.
Absolutely.
Wow, everybody plays so dirty. I love it.
Dirty. It's dirty pool. And, my official stance is I do not encourage any kind of trashing of property, anybody else's property, okay? So vandalism is something I frown upon. But it is kind of funny, isn't it?
Well, wait, so Jim, how often have you ever walked back an answer or accepted a correction when a team argues that your official answer is actually incorrect? Like, how often has that happened?
Okay, at that point in time, then I throw out the question. So then nobody gets any points for that question.
Ah.
And I think the most questions I've ever had to throw out has been about 16 one year I had to throw out. But typically it's about 5 or 6 or 8 maybe.
Okay, out of 500 questions, that's not bad.
It's interesting because some of the students will say, well, come on, you're going to throw out questions? And I'll go like, okay, go to your professor and really look at some of his or her test questions. What if you think their question is wrong? and the answer that they give you, would you go to them and challenge it? Oh, no, you wouldn't. And in this particular instance, too, there may be 20 students in the class. That's not a very big sampling of people that would want to challenge a question. But we're talking about 10 or 12,000 people wanting to challenge a question, coming up with different sources, and they're going to call it in.
So speaking of questions, what's an example of the type of questions that are in the world's largest trivia contest?
Well, I have some of my favorites. What is the first and last name of the baseball player whose autograph is on the baseball bat that Wendy Torrance used to hit her husband in the movie The Shining?
Oh my, there's like 10 different layers here.
Yes.
I'm surprised you even gave them the movie. You didn't make them search that.
I mean, why not? It's just so wonderful. That became my favorite question for a long time. And so I would ask it every year during the final hour. And so Carl Yastrzemski, everybody, believe me, if you ask anybody in Stevens Point whose name was on that baseball bat, they'll just go, oh, the ass. Of course, the ass.
Well, what makes that question in particular your favorite?
It's the most ridiculous thing I could ever possibly imagine anybody asking or getting out of a movie.
That's good enough criteria for me.
Yeah.
I know that I got a text from Heather a couple of years back during trivia, and it was a screenshot, I think, from Indiana Jones that included an old British padlock, and she needed to know what brand and model that padlock was. And I did happen to know that, but I got back to her like 3 seconds too late.
Yeah.
David's our resident padlock expert.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I assume the teams must all have an expert or a specialist on just about every single subject.
The winning teams, yes. Other teams don't. They just play for the fun of it. Okay. But the teams that are serious about it, they'll split into groups. They'll say, okay, you two, you're responsible for NBC. You two are responsible for CBS. You are responsible for ABC, and so on, until they cover all the networks.
So you are like single-handedly keeping network television and the movie theater industry alive.
Yes.
Inspiration comes from so many different places, and this very episode came from someone on the Room Escape Artist team, and that's Heather Burns. We talked about her earlier on and her deep love of the world's largest trivia competition. I first encountered Heather when her and Richard joined our Patreon. It has been an incredible journey from there where we started collaborating on all sorts of things together, but it started with Patreon.
Yeah, it's been really incredible to see how much you've been growing the Room Escape Artist team over the years, and all of the different work that you've been doing. Takes a lot of team members, but, takes a lot of support, takes a lot of money. And that's part of the reason why we have the Patreon, is to help fund all of these projects that we're doing and trying to get everybody paid.
Yeah, no one gets rich off of this, especially when you're really truly paying everybody for what they're doing. And that is what we are doing here at Room Escape Artist. That money from Patreon allows us to do incredible things, because if I have learned anything over my 11 years of doing all of this, it's that you can't do great things alone.
Yeah. So if you've been enjoying the content that we've been producing, if you want to support our mission of elevating this industry, consider joining the Patreon. Your $2, your $5 pledge, it truly goes a long way.
Yeah, we cannot do this without you. And you can learn more about all of this at patreon.com/roomescapeartist. Thank you to everyone who currently supports us and anyone who is thinking about becoming one.
Now, the world's largest trivia contest started well before the internet was a factor. And I've seen the documentary. People have like garages just full of collections of old magazines, books, maps, whatever they might need to find information in. But how have you adapted the contest to the influence of technology over the past few decades when so much of it is available in searchable databases?
Okay, let me give you an example of something that might be asked in 1979. What are the first and last names of the couples who are the landlords of the Ricardos? Okay, Fred and Ethel Mertz. Okay, that's pretty simple. That's a giveaway in this day and age. Back then, it may not be so easy, and you might need to look in a book. The kind of question that we would ask now would be a big screen ocean biologist, when wanting to go into the ocean to study sea life, was unable to get his equipment working because he couldn't do something. What could he not do?
Wait, so what's the answer?
He couldn't spit.
And what movie was this?
Jaws. Remember, Richard Dreyfuss is getting in the water and he's got his mask and he couldn't spit in it to keep the fog from coming out. He says, I can't spit.
So there's another vein of trivia that we have not yet talked about, which is all of the food packaging questions that you use. Talk to us about this.
Trivia is about anything that's media. Cereal boxes are printed. Kool-Aid packages are printed. All of this stuff is printed information, just like commercials, TV commercials. They're great. I love TV commercials. Some of the best writing on TV is done with commercials because, think about it, they have to get their point across in 15 seconds. They're not given the luxury of having an hour and 58-minute movie. They have 15 seconds or 30 seconds, and you better get your point across. So it has to be concise writing and the imagery that they do and all of that. So that's a cool part of commercials, a cool part of cereal boxes. Come on. So many cereal boxes. Captain Crunch, they always have puzzles on back, or they'll have different characters on back. It's all out there.
I've learned from Heather that a lot of these children's cereal boxes have games printed on the inside of the box that you reference. I didn't even know that these things were there, let alone that they would be something that would be fair game for trivia contest.
Everything's fair game. A few years back, I was up taking a weekend vacation in Door County, Wisconsin. And there was an old record shop in there. And I went into the record shop and they had a board game that I had never seen before. And it was in a little bit raggy shape, and it was something that had come out in the 1960s, and he wanted $10 for it, and I bought it because there's questions in those board games.
The net effect of this is that established trivia teams end up building libraries and databases of food and food packaging. And I know that if I happen to buy a unusual snack item, that I'm supposed to take photos of the front and back, and if there's anything on the inside, and send it off to Heather for their collection of this stuff. And the more time that I've spent with her, the more that I watch her like mentally collating information as something pops up. She's like, oh, that might be an interesting trivia question. I'll see her go and take some notes somewhere. It's really interesting seeing the way that that plays out. Trivia might be 3 days, but for the people who are avidly and actively participating in it, it is a year-round experience.
Right. As far as me, the contest would be in April, and I start taking notes in June.
Now, I've also heard rumor that you have to retain all of the garbage from the packaging and foods that you have and the media you're consuming, because people will go through your garbage if you put it out before trivia. Is that true?
Yes.
See, because they have to crawl inside his head. They have to figure out how he's thinking.
Regular garbage, I throw out.
Seems reasonable.
But anything like once we use a package, we'll throw it away. Okay. The garbage in the trivia writing room stays until after trivia, and then it gets thrown out.
That makes sense. Now, I have also heard tale of people following you around the grocery store and keeping tabs on the items you are buying.
Yes. So one year I was on my way to the station at about 10:30 Friday morning, and I called up the station manager and I said, hey, I'm on my way to the grocery store. Is there anything you need me to pick up? She had just recently had a baby and she was breastfeeding. And she says, could you buy me some breast pads? I said, sure, not a problem. So I go in the store and I bought a bunch of M&Ms and Tums and aspirin and breast pads. So I get up in the line and I'm buying it, and I look behind me and there's a trivia player 2 people back. And I'm getting into the line and she's taking my stuff, and I look back and he's gone. And so I didn't think anything of it. I got my stuff, went to the station, and Sunday night after the contest, when we were giving away the trophies, the team that he was on won a trophy. And so they came in and he got the microphone and he said, well, I have to tell a little story. So Friday morning, I'm in the grocery store and I'm standing in line behind the Oz. And I look down and I see that he has a box of breast pads. And I thought to myself, do I need to get breast pads? Yes, I do. And he went and bought breast pads.
Wow. But this is when the contest is actually active. So it's not like you're stocked 365 days a year.
Oh, don't be so sure. You know, people do watch what I have in the grocery cart. One year, we had a lot of spam questions, and I don't know how it all started.
You mean like spam, the canned meat product, not spam as in email spam?
Right, the vomit-flavored food that I don't know why anybody would eat it.
I love spam.
Okay, well,
I'm a spam aficionado.
I'm sorry. And I just threw away a can of Spurky, which is turkey spam.
I just learned a thing.
My wife said, are we going to use this? I said, no. She says, well, how old is it? I said, oh, it's got to be 20 years old. So she says, oh, my God. I said, yeah. So we threw it away. But the year that we had the spam thing, we asked about maybe 10 questions during the contest about spam. And like, where's the spam museum and all of this stuff. So the week before the contest, at the time we had a trivia kickoff, which was, we had a band come in and play. And so my co-writer and I, John, wore sweatshirts with spam printed across the chest. That was on a Friday night. By Saturday at 11 a.m., you could not buy a can of spam in Portage County, Wisconsin. And Wednesday of that week, I received a registered letter from an attorney down in Austin, Texas, who said that I had to cease and desist with the spam activities because it was cutting into the popularity of this spam off that they have in Texas every year.
You were disrupting their supply chain.
Well, I know they thought that I was that we were going to have a spam off up here because all of a sudden we're selling so much spam in Wisconsin. And
you were doing a competing contest. And
exactly.
That's why they had sold out of so much of the spam.
Right.
This is not the only time stuff like this has happened.
Oh, no.
I've heard tale of you basically knocking websites out by sending them too much traffic during trivia.
The hug of death, the Reddit hug of death.
Yes. If you're going to put up a website, make sure you get some kind of server that can handle getting bombarded.
Ain't that the truth?
You got to warn them ahead of time.
I remember it was early on in the life of Google. And all of our searches that are done in Stevens Point go through Appleton, Wisconsin. And oh my God, there was like a big deal in California to see what was happening in Appleton, that they were getting bombarded. They couldn't handle it. So they learned about the contest that year. That was way back, about 25 years ago, 38 years ago.
What do you get when you mix pals, puzzles, and trivia? That's right, it's PG's Playhouse, our newest podcast where you can play along with our guests through some games featuring a blend of wordplay and trivia.
Then I share an interesting bit of trivia, lore, or history based on the episode's theme.
Sleeping is easy. I can do it with my eyes closed. Part of the game in episode 18 was figuring out which idiom for sleep I'm rephrasing. So if I said, punch the bag, what idiom for sleeping is that? Or if I had said, 2 score squints. Listen to the end to find out the answer.
In this episode, we explore the bizarre activity that we spend almost half our lives doing. We also share tips and tricks for falling asleep.
PG's Playhouse is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for PG's Playhouse or click the link in our show notes. And here's the answer to punch that bag. I hope you guessed, hit the sack. And 2 score squints, well, you got to catch your 40 winks. Don't sleep on PG's Playhouse.
What happens when a DJ or question asker mispronounces a word?
It makes my life living hell.
The complaint hotline is just lighting up.
Tell me about Chichi Rodriguez.
Oh, that was, we say Chai Chai Rodriguez because of Les Nessman on WKRP in Cincinnati. Because when he would do a sports update, and he says, and in golf, Chai Chai Rodriguez. And so we picked up on that.
Oh, my God.
And so there's a team named Chichi Rodriguez Energy Bands, but we always pronounce it Chai Chai Rodriguez Energy Bands. There was one year that the station manager, senior in college, mispronounced 3 words in one question. And one of them was alias, and she pronounced it Alice. And another one was entrepreneur, and she just butchered the hell out of that thing. So anyway, I had to go in and throw out the question, and she was upset. And I said, oh, the other word was philanthropist. And I called her on. I walked in. I said, you mispronounced 3 words. This is on the air. And she says, I never heard of the word philanthropist ever in my life. I said, you're a senior in college. How do you not hear the word philanthropist ever? Anyway, that following week, she went into McDonald's and she goes up to the counter to start ordering her meal. And the girl behind the counter looks up at her and said, you're Alice. You're Alice.
Oh, no. She's never going to live it down.
Needless to say, after she graduated, she moved away from Stevens Point. And there were people that took her reading of the question and put it on their answering machine. So if you call them up, she would start reading the question and fumble through these 3 words and mispronounce them.
Oh, she became a meme.
At the top of the episode, we mentioned that while you were running trivia, you were the Oz.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the name and the story behind it.
I started working at 90 FM in 1976. So I was helping at the station in the trivia contest in 77 and 78. And the guy who was writing the questions was called the Oz. And so when I started writing the questions, I was called the Oz.
Great and powerful.
Oh, it's like a mantle.
Yes.
It just passes on to the question writer.
It's the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Yes.
Exactly. Wait, so are you the only one that writes the questions?
No.
Or do you have a team of people helping you?
2.
2 people.
Yes, me and one other, John Eckendorf and me. And the reason I do that, one year I tried writing with a 3rd person, did not work well. 2 people could work together and you don't worry about security or questions leaking out. There's another school that has a trivia contest in February, Super Bowl weekend. Go figure that one out. Anyway, they have about a dozen students writing the questions. And then those students play on teams.
Oh, well, that doesn't
That doesn't seem to me to be a very good way of doing it. And then there's another university over in Minnesota that has a contest. And they also have quite a few people that write questions. And also some of them play. And it doesn't ring well with me.
Rigged.
Yeah.
What is the community of participants like for trivia?
Anything that you could imagine is what they are. You would imagine really smart book learning kind of people. You could imagine people that are just, you look at them and you go, what do you do for a living? And how is it that anybody would pay you? And yet they know their stuff, they have their expertise, and they know how to have fun, or they drink a lot. One or the other.
Can't it be both?
Or they do both, yes.
It feels to me like there are, year in and year out, a lot of the similar teams competing for the top 10 to 20 spots.
Yes.
Talk me through why you have these teams that are as dominant as they are, at least from your perspective.
The one team that really skyrocketed to prominence years and years ago was Network. They were a group of former students of mine that had just decided that this is what they were going to do. And they're all very smart people. And one of them, he was in my class of accelerated algebra students. It was accelerated algebra, 9th grade. And after the first test, I got him and I said, okay, you're on your own now. I said, I want you to go through the algebra book, do the even numbered questions, turn them into me every time you get them done. And I want you done by the end of the semester. So he did that. And I said, if you have questions, I'll always spend time with you, but I need to get you through this book. And he said, what am I going to do second semester? I said, well, I'm going to teach you Fortran programming. And he said, okay. And he's a programmer today. And way back then, he started doing index cards. And he would write notes on index cards, and he had them organized in an alphabetical method. At that time, his parents bought him card catalogs, and he had all his 3x5 index cards in card catalogs. And they started doing it that way. They kept everything. I mean, they have volumes of stuff. And then as the computer age came around, he quickly put all of that information into a database that he designed, and so they have their own database. As other teams have come along and optical character recognition software, they'll take books and slice them up, put them into a scanner, scan them, and then put them into OCR so they can be searched later.
Okay, so it seems to me like to be a good functioning trivia team, a lot of it is about the ability to organize information so that you can access it quickly when needed.
Yes. And you have to have a good memory, too. One year, I asked the question, who was the surfing champion of Honolulu in 1968? And where I got the question from was a Ventures album. And the Ventures album, they had the theme from Hawaii Five-0 on there. And on front of the thing, there was a surfer. And on back is a story about the surfer stating that he had won this championship in 1968 or whatever. And so I asked this question. This is pre-internet, you understand. So I heard about this afterwards. One of the players said, wait a minute, that's on a Ventures album. So he got on the phone, he called his wife at home, he says, go into the record room and look at the record stacks and look under V for Ventures. Okay, it's down on the 5th shelf down, off to the right-hand side, about 3/4 of the way through. And you look in there and you'll see a blue album. And she found it and pulled it out and gave him the answer, and they got it right. That was a 500-point question.
Because he was the only one that got it right.
Yes.
Wow. All right. So like memory for details and good organization of information. What else do you need to be a good trivia player for this contest?
You want to have some fun. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to end up in the top 10, but you can have a lot of fun playing the contest. I always said, I'll do it as long as I'm having fun. If I stop having fun, I'm done. I would just stop right then and there.
That's a good enough reason to be doing anything. Okay, so besides some light stocking of your garbage cans, what are some of the other extremes that teams have gone to try to win this contest?
Oh, I'll go out on a Friday night, go to a bar, and people will start buying me drinks. And I'm like, it isn't going to work. It isn't going to work, guys.
Some light bribery and inebriation.
Inebriation. They want me to get me really loose-lipped, you know?
Wisconsin lubricant.
That's right. Not going to work. Not going to work.
Hello, Alex from Cogs here. Once again, I've got another big Cogs user for you to explain how it helped them create their immersive adventure. You're about to hear from Owen Kingston, director of Bridge Command, a highly interactive, immersive LARP experience where anyone can take the helm of a realistic starship. Over to you, Owen.
One of the big things we realised we needed very early on is we needed a more robust interface between the game engine and all of the interactable technology in the ships. That core thing that we really wanted to deliver on, that the ships could be repaired by the audience in a meaningful way, that the game engine would read from interactable props, the repairs that had been made, and then update itself based on that. All of those things, that promise of the premise of flying a real starship where there are no buttons that don't do anything and everything has a purpose, it would not have been possible without Cogs.
Cheers, Owen. If you'd like to know more about Cogs, go to cogs.show or find us on Instagram or TikTok. We also have a YouTube channel, The Cogs Lab, where you can listen to our new podcast, Inventures. If you fancy giving us a go, get an exclusive 50% off our starter set plus free shipping by using the code REPOD, that's REPOD, at checkout. Thanks for stopping by.
You open every single year of trivia with an in memoriam. How does that work?
Teams send me information about players on their team who have died in the past 12 months.
It's a really nice thing that you're doing there for that community.
Well, it started back when, in 1974, long before I was involved, they put together the opening of the contest. And it starts off, it is now 6 o'clock, Friday, April, whatever. Okay. There's a tension in the air, a sort of electricity that cannot be ignored. And so this thing was recorded by this one guy who had the kind of voice that comes around once in a lifetime. Okay. His voice was so deep. And he always did the noon till 4 shift on Saturday afternoon. And he would read the questions on the air. And so after 4 o'clock, he came into my office that I get for trivia weekend only. And he said, oh man, he says, that was fun. I said, yeah, thanks, Tom. He says, we should get together, have Manhattans. How about Wednesday night down at Elks Club? I said, I'll see you there. We're going to meet like at 6 o'clock on Wednesday night to have Manhattans. And so the next morning, 7 o'clock, I was at the running question. And this one young woman, maybe about 16, 17 years old, she's standing there and she's crying and sobbing. I said, what's the matter? And she says, my uncle died this morning. I said, oh, I'm very sorry about that. Do I know him? Oh, yeah, it's Tom Daniels. I looked at her and I said, that's not even funny. And she said, no, he died this morning at 4 o'clock. He had a massive heart attack. And it blew me away. It was horrible. I had talked to him on Saturday afternoon, and we had made plans to go out Wednesday night. And so I went back to the station and the rest of the contest. We just had different things that we played, memorializing Tom. And then at the end of the show, we had a big memoriam for him. And then I decided, he wasn't the only person who's died who's played the contest. So each year I started recognizing people that I had heard about who died, who played in the contest.
Yeah, because you've all been participating together for so many years.
Right.
That's a wonderful way to be remembered.
I am curious. We've talked about this a little bit throughout the episode, but what kinds of crazy things happened during the pre-internet days of trivia that really jump out at you that you wish you'd be able to bring back, but no, you can't?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there were just as many goofy things during internet as there was before internet. I heard stories about teams have a specific area where they want people to sleep. Okay, so you go off in this room and you can sleep over there. This is the playing room, and there's no sleeping allowed in here. And so one year I heard about this person who fell asleep on the floor in the playing room. When he woke up, he was duct taped to the floor.
So he didn't roll around and mess up like materials that they had laid out.
No, he couldn't move. He was duct taped to the floor. He could not get out. Then another year, I got a phone call on the complaint line, and it was from our local hospital emergency room. And they said, could you get on the air and make an announcement, please? And I said, what's that? And she says, would you tell so-and-so's, this woman, would you tell her husband to come to the hospital because his wife just had the baby?
They couldn't get through to him.
We can't get through to him because the phone line's tied up. And I said, okay. So I got on the air and I told him. And then a few days later, I was talking to one of the players on the team, and they said he got so excited, he ran through the screen door on the back of the house. He didn't even open it. He just ran right through it and busted the screen door out.
Like the Kool-Aid man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And we try to keep the questions a bit on the crazy side, too. One year we had 3 questions during the contest, all using the song Oh Yeah by Yellow. And because there were 3 times where this popped up, like one was in a movie, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That was the year, when that movie came out, that's the year that we used Yellow 3 times in one contest. Because it was everywhere. People were using it all over the place because it was a hot song that particular year.
Now, before we close out this episode, if any of our listeners are interested in participating in this crazy trivia contest, what's the best way for them to do so?
You can go to www.90fmtrivia, 90fmtrivia.org. And that's our website. And you can find out a lot of information right there.
Do people fly in?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. 1/3 of the players that play come into Point from around the state and around the country and even around the world.
Yeah, Stevens Point's population booms during trivia.
It does. And don't even think about calling up a couple days in advance and getting a hotel room, because it's not happening. They're sold out.
And whether you're thinking about participating in trivia or not, go and check out 90fmtrivia.org because it is a magnificent preservation of classic web design. I love this website so much.
Well, I want you to know who does that. Me.
I'm a big fan.
And people say, well, how come you don't have any gifts and this? And I said, it's an information page. We want people to get information. I don't need to have bells and whistles going on.
It gets the job done.
So this is held every year in April, and I assume you'll be hosting it again in 2026.
Yes. If you want to know the dates, I can tell you that right off the top of my head, I don't know them. But I think it's around April 12th or so. But if you go to 90fmtrivia.org, you can find out. Just read all the information you could ever want to know is right there. There are other questions that I love to talk about. I was invited out to a gaming convention in Las Vegas. I think it was 2002, maybe 2003. Went out there and gave a speech at this gaming convention. I was one of the 3 keynote speakers. And one speaker was a big winner on Jeopardy. At the time, had been the largest winner on Jeopardy to that point. This is pre-Ken Jennings. And then another person that spoke was representative of NTN, National Trivia Network, the pub trivia network. And we were talking, And they got up and said, it's really important that the questions are geared so that people can answer them. We always worry about questions being too hard. And then I got up and I said, okay, first off, there's no such thing as a question that's too hard, period. That's it. Because, first of all, they have books, they have notes, they have magazines, records, they have all these sources. If you're in a pub, you can't do anything. You have to know it off the top of your head. In the contest, there's no such thing as something that's too hard. And over the years, you talk about people stalking and all of that. And people often have been cruel. They'll call me crazy. You're crazy. You do this. You're crazy. You're crazy. So one year, I asked this question. What is the name of the theatrical presentation presented in surround storage?
I'm going to need some help on that one.
Okay. There was an episode of Married with Children in which Kelly Bundy was attending the Larry Storch School of Acting. And for their semester project, they had to do a play, okay? And so Al and Peg and Bud go to this thing, and they say, okay, we're going to go see you. And then it breaks for commercial. And then when it comes back from commercial, they're in an auditorium. The camera pans back from the stage, and then you hear the announcer go, ladies and gentlemen, the Larry Storch School of Acting presents in surround Storch, The Phantom of the Opera. And that was it. That was the only time it was ever mentioned. So I thought, wow, this is a good question. And I asked the question. 48 teams got it right. 48 teams got that right. And I thought, oh my God. So at the end of the contest, after all the teams have been given their trophies and everything, I said, I just want to say, I've had people come up to me many times and say they think I'm crazy. And I just want to point out that 48 teams got the Larry Storch School of Acting question correct. And my question to you is, who is crazy?
Exactly. Wow. Yeah. Married with Children was a comfort watch. It was the one show my dad would sit and watch with me. So I have a soft spot for that. So, Jim, what comes next for you? I assume you've already started working on the next contest.
Actually, I am retired from writing it.
Oh, you're retired. When did you retire?
2 years ago.
Ah, do you ever miss it, or do you want to go play?
No, I don't want to go play. I still organize it. I'm still in charge of the contest. I just don't write the questions anymore. But probably around 15 years ago, we started doing Trivia Unplugged, which is kind of like bar trivia, except we have actual rules. And so we do the same type of scoring where it's 1,000 points divided. It's a bucket type system of point values. 500 is the max, and then it goes down from there. One of them is a 6-hour contest, and the other one's a 4-hour contest. And we had been up to as many as 4 contests, but due to funding issues, the organizations that we were raising money for actually had to stop their existence. Anyway, so we do these contests, and there's 10 players allowed per team, and they play at a table. There are no cell phones, no smartphones, no Google glasses, nothing, none of this, anything electronic. And what you know is that's it. So the questions are not as hard. They're still media oriented, and you get the length of one song to answer a question. So there are 18 questions an hour, and the songs are all 2 minutes or less.
Not a lot of time.
Not a lot of time, and the teams just sit there. When they have an answer, they hold the answer sheet up, and somebody comes by and grabs it, and then it goes up to the scoring table, and they score it. And it's fast-paced, man. When we get in there and you start asking 18 questions in an hour, like in a pub trivia, they'd never get 18 questions in an hour. It's just ridiculous. You can't do it. So we keep it fast-paced and moving along, and people have fun with it. We're doing one September 20th, and it's raising money for Create Portage County, which is an art-based program in Point. And then we do another one in June for the Habitat for Humanity. And the one this month will generally get between 25 and 30 teams. We have to play in an airplane hangar.
Oh, wow.
It's great. It's a lot of fun.
Okay, so if our listeners are interested in following any of these new contests that you are hosting, how can they get in touch with you or see what you're up to?
They can go to 90fmtrivia.org, and my email address is on there. The trivia contest you can play anywhere because it's online. We stream the contest as well as broadcast the contest. And you could call in on the phone. And like some of the teams even play where some members can't be here. So they'll have private chat rooms set up where they can have players all over the country and the world, really, to play. And some teams, they said, it's really cool. We got these players in LA, so when we sleep, they can take over. Then when we wake up, they're back and they can take a nap. But as far as the unplugged contest, they have to be here. It's an in-person contest.
Got it. I will have links to all of that in the show notes.
Jim, thank you so much for joining us.
I hope it answered some of your questions.
You did a beautiful job. And in preparing for this, I spent quite a bit of time immersed in trivia culture and the history of everything that you and your crew have done. And I have a deep appreciation of these kinds of fun intellectual competitions that have developed their own cultures and ways of being. And the world's largest trivia contest is one of the most unusual that I have seen. The culture around it is absolutely wild. It is as interesting as it is funny. And I really do hope that I get out to Stevens Point one of these Aprils to give it a shot, because I am so curious to see what this madness is about. And I know that it has affected so many people in so many positive ways. And I think that it's just a really special thing.
Oh, cool. Thanks. There is another thing that on Facebook, I have a site called World's Largest Trivia Contest, and I have a daily question up there. So I've been writing questions for about 5, 6, 7 years now on there. One a day. I missed one day. I can't even believe it. I just had a brain fart that day and never really got around to putting a question up. Boy, did I take the abuse for that.
I bet.
Yeah, not kind. They were not kind at all.
This episode of Reality Escape Pod is produced by Teresa Piazza with support by Lisa Spira, Heather Burns, and Richard Burns. We're edited by Steve Ewing of Stand Inside Media, music by Ryan Elder, logo by Janine Proct, and all of this is brought to you by RoomEscapeArtist.com, your home for well-researched, rational, and reasonably humorous escape room and immersive gaming content and events. Thank you to all of our highest tier Patreon supporters: Chris Laughlin, Panic Room, Olivier Escape, Escaparium, Breakout Games, Derek Tam, Andy Mincer, Mystery Unfolds, Karen, Byron Delmonico, Keystone Escape Games, and Rex Miller. Thank you to all of you for your ongoing support.
If you've made it all the way to the end of the episode, you're still here, looks like you had a pretty good time listening, we would love it if you took that good time and left us a review. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. It helps with making people find our podcast, and it even helps us with getting guests on the show.
And if writing a review is a bridge too far, just share the link to an episode that you like with someone who you think will appreciate it. Word of mouth, that is the thing that helps us grow. Thank you so much for supporting us, however you're doing it, whether it is on Patreon, with a review, or just sharing a link. We appreciate you.
Every newsletter I send out, or anytime I talk about stuff, I'll go like, let's play trivia, Fast Eddie. And this all started the first year that I wrote the contest. I went home to take a nap Sunday morning at midnight. And when I got on the air at 4 o'clock, I said, the complaint line's back open. I hope you've had plenty of rest and you're all ready to go. So let's gather around the radio and let's play trivia, Fast Eddie. And nobody understood where that came from. And I will now explain it because never really explained it to anybody. In the movie The Hustler, Jackie Gleason and Paul Newman are playing pool. And Jackie Gleason plays Minnesota Fats, and Paul Newman plays Fast Eddie Felson. So they're playing and playing. You start off for $100 a game, and then they're up $1,000 a game, whatever. And they're played for 24 hours. And then it's daybreak, and they're just taking a little bit of a break. And Jackie Gleason goes into the men's room, and he's at the sink, and he washes his hands and his face, and he slicks back his hair, and then he buttons his shirt and pulls his tie up, and he makes sure his vest is in order, and he adjusts the carnation in his lapel, and they sprinkle talcum powder on his hands so they're nice and smooth and can slide the cue stick through it. And he walks out, and he goes up to Fast Eddie Felson, and he says, "Let's play pool, Fast Eddie." And I thought, okay, so this is perfect. You've been playing this game for 24 hours. Now you're going to start shooting pool. And so these people have been playing trivia for 36, 38 hours. And now I tell them, let's play some trivia, Fast Eddie.